Alan here. I want to take a minute to explain some things. As I'm doing these short clips, I call it alchemy on the go. I'm doing real live applications of principles of alchemy as I go through different areas. Right now, I'm in Thailand, and I know I'm throwing out some alchemical concepts, not explaining it. I call those studio discussions where I'm talking about a theory and philosophy. Now I'm doing real life application in the moment, and so in this trip right now in Thailand, I've noticed I used a couple of words called the natural elements, and some of you may be familiar with that. I thought I'd take a minute and talk about those. If you understand the scientific, what do you call it, periodic table of elements, you know that there are 118 elements or atoms that the scientists have identified, more or less. There's also a few more being discovered. And when I say natural elements, we're talking about the big things that are not made by human, they're not artifacts that we all experience. It's the foundation of metaphysics or reality. The scientific periodic element is trying to explain those things, right? So the 5 natural elements discussed by philosophers, mystics since the beginning of time, recorded time, are the earth element, which represents solid mass, which can also be smelled in the air. Then there's water element, not just liquid. We have liquid, like alcohol is liquid, but it's not the water element. Water is water. Water is made by nature. And so when the ancients looked at the life itself and tried to figure out reality, they saw that somehow reality comes with water. It doesn't come from a particular person. Just like the earth, the rocks, the mountains, the dirt, doesn't come from any particular person. So it's a natural element, foundation for everything else you observe, all living things, everything, right? And then there's the fire element. Fire is a confusing one. It does represent fire when you're lighting a candle, but it also represents light, the sunlight, but it also represents color. When you look around you, you see colors, especially the greenery, and on plants. All that is representation of the fire element. Fire element is not just the heat, it's a representation of heat and light, but also color. The ancient recognized this stuff, whatever it is produced by nature. So we call it natural, all right? When the scientists are doing their work, they're trying to explain this phenomena, all right? That's what they're attempting to do, is explain that phenomena. That's the 3. The 4th element we discuss, I keep on mentioning, is the air element. That's one that's a little more subtle, all right? We breathe the air, we need it, it's around us, it's oxygen we'll call it today. We have all kind of different names for gases, right? But the ancient also recognized this as well. Some of them try, in philosophy at least, tried to argue that the fundamental property of everything is ultimately made of air particles, air parts. Today we say that the fundamental property is made of atoms, molecules. But they recognize that as well, right? There is this thing called air that we breathe, we need, right? So recognizing this did not take science. It was recognized before science was here. So when I say the natural elements, I'm referring to that. Those things that all of us can agree are there. And then in terms of alchemy, we try to say, what does this basic knowledge allows us to do, right? The last one, the most subtle, more subtle than air itself, is called the ether. And that one is always difficult. Many scientists took a lot of their energy and time to destroy the idea of the ether. And the basic meaning of ether is space, spaciousness, right? Remember the great scientist Albert Einstein. At first, his general theory of relativity made throughout the idea of the ether. We don't need to appeal to an ether to explain the world, he claimed. But later, when he looked at his general theory of relativity in detail, he realized it was incomplete. He needed to add, there was some problem he could not solve with the theory. He thought there was a big problem in his own theory. And he went back and argued and tried to prove that the ether exists. And he argued that so that he can make his theory more complete. That's the scientist. Let's look back to who we are right now. You and me, we're sitting here, we don't have scientist degrees, we don't want to get in that debate. What's the ether to us? It's space. I'm in a room here, we could call that the ether, the basic ether. But look closely, when you're looking at a horse, the horse has a particular dimension to it. You could say the horse is made of the earth element, the water element, the fire element, the heat of his body, and even the air element. It breathes, right? But look at the shape. Where does the shape come from? The fundamental idea behind the ether is shape, or what some of the philosophers call the form. How do you get that form? How do you get that particular shape? How do you get the shape of the organs and the shape of the stomach, and how do you get the shape of all these things going on? Look at a dog. A dog has a particular shape. That's the ether of the dog. The ether is that shape. That is, you recognize in nature certain things are produced in a particular way. Now modern day scientists try to say, oh, it's made by the evolutionary theory. Maybe, maybe not. That's not the question. The important part is that all of us, you and me, we can see there's a distinction between a horse and a fly, a horse and a cat, a horse and a snake. We are seeing different shapes. That is the ether in living things, all right? When you talk about the atmosphere, you're saying there's something invisible holding the oxygen and everything together out there, okay? That is another understanding of the ether, all right? So when I use the word ether, I'm looking at space, and it's mystical. It's very mystical. Why do we have dogs? Why do we have cats? It's very mystical. And this idea of the five elements is being used to empower us. It gives us a framework by which we evaluate things. Like this hotel, I can evaluate, assess this hotel for its natural elements. If it has a balanced core of natural elements, it means those who are living here are going to be living a more healthier lifestyle, because your framework, your body has the five natural elements: the earth, the water, the fire, the air, and the ether. You have your own shape, you have your own dynamics, you have your own atmosphere. You have an atmosphere too, okay? When you're thinking, your thoughts are not connected with other people's thoughts. Your mind, their mind. You have an etheric structure. We can use that word structure to mean you're isolated. Like the skin will be like the physical representation of the ether, okay? But the shape is your ether. So you have all five elements. And the grand idea behind living in a balanced environment is that if all five elements are supported, you live a very healthy, a radically healthy life. Of course, in today's world, this is not really possible. So right now, I was just taking a moment to pause to do a little studio work to give anyone looking at just the Alchemy on the Go series some significant knowledge, because I taught these ideas around and I expect you to be aware of them, all right?